what are the key features when you start thinking of hypophosphatemic rickets in a child?
Key features are like late onset of presentation, mainly involvement of the lower limbs, and less severe manifestations like no episodes of hypocalcemic seizure or.
Yes. So you have said that if you have a later onset in the child, mainly lower limb involvement, think of hypophosphatemic. Which biochemical feature at presentation will exclude hypophosphatemic rickets? Low calcium and so hypocalcemia or hyperparathyroidism will make it very, very unlikely. And how important is urine phosphate in terms of evaluation?
Phosphate tell us if there is excretion via urine or not.
Okay. No, I'm asking how significant, how relevant it is.
Some for hypophosphatemic rickets, there is no excretion of phosphate via urine.
So in all causes of hypophosphatemic rickets, it's urinary loss. So it is not going to help out. Can you have dietary phosphate deficiency? Why? So everything that you eat, every cell has got a lot of phosphate. Every cell has got a lot of potassium. So you will not be missing out on phosphate or potassium. If you have low phosphate, low potassium, low magnesium, that is because of urinary loss. So a lot of people talk about TRP, tubular resorption of phosphate, tubular maximum of GFR, but they are all not very helpful. They might be required, but they are not essential for diagnosis. So what will be the first investigation you will do, Dr. Ria, in a case whom you diagnose that there is hypophosphatemic rickets before you start calcium and calcitriol? Yes.
Hypercalciuria, so we can omit the calcitriol.
That's a very important point. So everybody whom you label as hypophosphatemic rickets, check urinary calcium. You don't expect hypercalciuria, but if there is hypercalciuria, then the problem is not at the fibroblast growth factor 23, it's at the level of the phosphate transporter. So that becomes relevant. So we'll talk about physiology first, and then we will carry forward from that perspective. So this sounds very difficult, but what you need to remember is only two things. Whether there is a problem in the FGF23 or there is a problem in the NPT. This is what is relevant. So FGF23 problem, FEX I said is X-linked dominant. Then FGF23 is also autosomal dominant. And the problem that DMP1, I'm not going to that much details on that pathway. And the other pathway is mainly the NPT problem, which is basically associated with hypophosphatemic rickets with hypercalciuria. So you will have hypercalciuria which is happening, and Bent's disease is also there in that perspective. So either it is FGF23 dependent or independent from that regards. So hypophosphatemic rickets can be congenital because of problem in the FGF23, which can be FEX defect, which basically is a enzyme which metabolizes FGF23, that is a X-linked dominant disorder. DMP1, which is autosomal recessive, and GNAS1. Now, GNAS1 we all know is related to McCune albright. So McCune albright can also cause hypophosphatemic rickets, which is one of the manifestations in that regard. FGF23 independent can be because of a NPT problem, which is HHRH, hypophosphatemic rickets with hypercalciuria, and Dent syndrome, which is a form of tubulopathy. And then you can also have cells which are going to produce your FGF23, like mesenchymal tumor, epidermal nevi, and melanocytic nevus. So these can all cause hypophosphatemic rickets. You need to be aware about that. So we'll go one by one. FEX is the most common. The problem is in FEX, which is involved, you can understand, FGF23 metabolism. If FEX is defective, FGF23 levels are high. And you will have a manifestation of early onset hypophosphatemia. But rickets happens by 2 to 5 years. Why, Alapan? Phosphate is low since birth, but rickets happens later.
But not that severe actually.
What is the normal phosphate in children? They are high. So compared to older people, they are high. So even if it is slightly low, it doesn't make a difference. While if you have older child, the level becomes low, they become below the phosphorus threshold. So how does phosphorus deficiency cause rickets?
In the apoptosis of the growth, the chondrocytes.
Yeah.
So that process is not hampered, and that is why it can develop.
So if you need not that high phosphate to inhibit to cause apoptosis. So what I'm trying to say there, I'm just giving you a figure. It's not absolute correct. But let's say if your level is beyond 3, you will not have apoptosis. Only when the level are less than 3, apoptosis problem will start happening. So somebody in the childhood has a level of 6. From 6 it becomes 4. Still you are not having rickets. But later on, gradually the levels are falling down further, then rickets happen. So what I'm trying to say is that if you have rickets in the first 2 years of life, do not consider it to be hypophosphatemic rickets. That's a message overall I want to give in that regards. And usually lower limb involvement. Why lower limb involvement? Because upper limb involvement happens in smaller children, respiratory involvement because they are breathing, they are not walking. Later on they are walking, so that's why the bone becomes bent in the lower limb predominantly. So lower limb involvement, and they have a lot of problems in the teeth, dental abscesses, tendon problem, enthesitis they may happen, and you have this type of typical bony deformities which happen with coarse articulation. Other thing which happen is growth failure, and because of low phosphate, muscles also become weak. Phosphate is required for ATP, everything that is also becomes too low, then you will have myopathy also, and knee pain which is common. Rare manifestations are cramps. Cramps are much more common with magnesium deficiency and phosphate deficiency. But as I said, if you have low phosphate, your magnesium will also go down. Potassium will also go down. That will cause cramps here. Craniotabes is very unlikely. Tetany will never happen. If you have a tetany, which means calcium is low, it is not because of hypophosphatemic rickets. Biochemical picture is interesting. What you will see here is that your FGF23 is high. So phosphate loss will be there. Phosphaturia is there. You will also find phosphate is of course low. No effect on calcium. So your calcium is not going to be low. No tetany, no cramps. 25 OHD is normal. And calcitriol is low, inappropriately low. Anybody who has hypophosphatemia should have high calcitriol. If it is normal also, that means it is inappropriately low. So this is one sign you will get in that regards. And PTH will be low normal, and that is why your bone resorption is not that much of a problem in this regards. Second form is FGF23, which is an autosomal dominant condition, in which the structure of FGF23, I talked about 2 amino acids, remember arginine and serine, which is the area where the pro-convertase enzyme is acting. Now, if that area is defective, those enzymes are not working, so it becomes resistant to degradation. This is a milder form. So here, you don't have too high levels, but it is slightly high. It is a later involvement and intermittent. And as I said, it is more common when the iron levels dip. And typically, this will happen with menstruation and pregnancy. Now, this is autosomal dominant, so women will also have the similar features. It's not that they will have a different feature altogether. So this is a milder disease, not a very severe disease like the FEX1 defect. Treatment is calcitriol and phosphate, and ensure that the iron levels never become low, because that is something which is important to emphasize from that regards. Now, clotho. So what was clotho doing, Nimisha? Yes, so clotho is like a key. It is opening the FGF receptor. If there is no clotho, nothing is going to happen. If you have clotho excess, what will happen? So you have more FGF receptor to work. So even with same number of FGF molecules, more activity will be there. So this problem is increased activity of FGF receptor, and it is happening at kidney and parathyroid. So it is an unusual scenario of hypophosphatemic rickets with high PTH. So if you have high PTH with hypophosphatemic rickets, that's clotho excess. This is a rare disorder, but remember this combination. McCune-Albright syndrome, we all know, is a problem of the GNAS1 gene, in which multiple somatic areas where GNAS1 gene is activated, you will have peripheral precocious puberty because of ovarian cyst, you will have cafe au lait spots, you will have bony deformities, you will also have hypophosphatemic rickets, growth hormone excess, and thyrotoxicosis. So everything can happen more because of that. So this is a problem of the GNAS1 mutation. It's a somatic mutation. Somatic means that some cells are affected, some cells are not affected. So it causes mild form of disease, but rickets is common. We have seen patients with macunal bed with rickets, but the other manifestations like peripheral precocious puberty, thyrotoxicosis, growth hormone excess, Cushing's, cafe au lait, and low phosphate can be there. GNA is involved in the whole process as well. It's not just the part of the FGF23, the other pathway acts also through that path. And it will also cause other manifestation. Now, this is very, very important, and we have emphasized already about the sodium phosphate transporter. So this will cause hypophosphatemic rickets with hypercalciuria. So what is happening here is that the problem is not of FGF23. FGF23 levels are normal. Sodium phosphate transporter is defective, and your calcitriol response is normal. So your phosphate is low and your calcitriol is high. So this is dangerous situation. What it means is that you will have hypophosphatemia with high calcitriol and hypercalciuria. If you give them calcitriol, you're going to cause nephrocalcinosis. So again, many times I've already said, anybody whom you are seeing a case of hypophosphatemic ricket, check urinary calcium. High, this is this HHRH variant or a NPT2C defect. Only give phosphorus, do not give them calcitriol. That is important, and monitor hypercalciuria with annual ultrasound becomes important. Now, dense disease is an important form of tubulopathy, which is because of a chloride channel defect. And in dense disease, basically what is happening is it is a X-linked disorder because of a ClCN5, a chloride channel. You have a proximal dysfunction. Manifestations are like Fanconi, hypophosphatemia, amino acid urea, glucose urea, but bicarbonate is not very low, and hypercalciuria is there. So it's a mixture of, you can say, proximal and distal RTA. See, proximal RTA is causing hypophosphatemia, glucose urea, amino acid urea. Distal RTA is causing hypercalciuria. So two conditions causing hypophosphatemic rickets with hypercalciuria are dense and HHRH. So these are two important. Dense is not a very good disease. You can have renal failure also happening early. It causes, the hallmark is low molecular weight proteinuria. So you look for the beta microglobulin and RBP. These levels will give you a clue. Finally, tumor-induced osteomalacia, rare in children, but more common in older people. We have seen cases of nevi, large nevi, or hemangioendothelioma. Those scenarios you may have these secretions. So mesenchymal tumor, which produce, it's like a paraneoplastic syndrome. They are producing all these chemicals, and you will have new onset. Child was fine, suddenly you start having hypophosphatemia. And it is very, very difficult to locate in that regards. For that, you need to do specific testing like octreotide scan or PET scan. So this is one condition you will think of in an older individual who presents now suddenly with muscle weakness and weight loss, and they will have rickets, may or may not be there, but phosphate will be very, very low. They may have very bad bone disease in these scenarios. And surgery, octreotide and burosumab. I'll talk about what burosumab is. It's basically a monoclonal antibody against FGF23. This is the only treatment because here FGF23 levels are very sky high from that regards. Now, melanocytic nevus syndrome is a similar scenario, which is a rasopathy. So it is basically a somatic mutation in which this whole process is going on, and you will have skin lesion, CNS involvement in that regard. So just to compare whatever I've talked about, sex most common, X-linked dominant, high FGF23, severe disorder. FGF23 autosomal dominant, milder disorder, self-limiting, intermittent anemia triggers it. DMP1, not very significant, so let's skip it. Clotho excess causes hyperpara. So this is something you should remember. And other ones which are more important is GNAS1, which is somatic disease causing macunal blight. Finally, NPT2 causes nephrocalcinosis, and dense disease causes low molecular weight, proteinuria, and urinary calcium excretion. And MEPE is mesenchymal tumor. So most common is sex, then FGF23. Remember about NPT2 and chloride channel defect, which is dense disease.